This episode is proudly brought to you by the Afrocentric Group, Southern Africa's most diversified healthcare group, building a winning health offering. Hello and welcome to another edition of AI Impact Talk with me, Tembekile Mkhototo. And today we're talking about Agentic Process Automation. I will explain it to you, but I'm afraid I do a really bad job. And that's why we've brought in someone who knows much more than I do about what APA is. And that's Rudolph Janse van Rensburg, CEO at One AI. Rudolph, welcome to AI Impact Talk.
Oh, thank you so much.
So APA, I mean, I could hardly get that full name out, right? What are we talking about?
So I think APA can be seen as an evolution of RPA, right? So everyone is mostly known to robotic process automation. Mm-hmm. So APA, which the market has finally settled on a name for AI agents incorporated into RPA. So Agentic Process Automation. It is a mouthful, so I'm glad we have the abbreviation now.
Thank goodness. What does it entail broadly?
So broadly, it's using or leveraging all the new AI toys that we've all been used to now. Everyone's used to ChatGPT, large language models, etc. But then sort of augmenting your normal robotic process automation and using AI agents to then augment both the humans as well as the capabilities of RPA. And
is it industry specific? By that I mean, are there only specific industries who can use it, or is it applicable to all, let's say, businesses, perhaps even government departments, sort of?
Yeah, luckily it is. I mean, like I say, RPA is very, very widely used in all industries again. So it's definitely not industry specific. So anything from customer relations, if you have a lot of retail customers, and even to business type of processes can be automated using APA.
And where do you come in then as a business in this chain? What do you do?
So in this chain, I mean, generally what we do is we try and solve our customers' problems, right? So this sort of gives us another avenue as to solve our customers' problems in a much more fancy way, if I can put it that way. RPA is very rules-based, repetitive, manual type of work, taking that away from humans, which we aren't the best at those sorts of things. And this is now enabling us to then move into the more expert type of work, assisting with making decisions more than just automating a business process. Yeah.
And how does that work then, assisting with making decisions? Because most of us think, when you think automation, you think, okay, a very boring sort of system that performs a rudimentary function, so no one is standing there for an hour trying to get it done.
Yeah, no, true. I mean, when you talk about decision making, you're talking about using multiple types of data input. Right. If you think about any ticketing inbox, when was the last time you logged a query to your IT department or whatever the case might be, right? So we used to have humans interpret what the customer is actually asking for, right? And then say, okay, this is a level 1. This needs to go to the finance department. This needs to go there, etc. But with APA, then process now basically understands what you're asking. The same way that when you ask ChatGPT a question, it knows what you're asking, and it's quite nice and friendly and those sorts of things. So now you can leverage that the APA functionality on a platform basis to then take that ticket or that incident and then filter it and run it in the give it to the bots or give it to the correct people, whatever the case might be. So you're taking where you used to have a person having to sit there to make the decision, that decision can now be augmented by.
And would I be right, Rudolph, in saying that the outcome is only as good as the command or question?
It's definitely true. So not unfortunately, but to ask the right questions, right, of the data or the information, you still need to understand it. So if you think about the change that's going to probably impact the workforce going forward, is everyone needs to be trained or upskilled in terms of how to ask the right questions in the right way. Because there's ways to make it easier for us and all those sorts of things, but you still need a sort of understanding, a minimum type of understanding. So the workforce really needs to start thinking about how do I ask the right questions.
It's like a Google search, right?
Yeah.
Google will only give you the best options if you know what you're asking it to pull up for you.
True. But now you can be sort of, if the agent needs to answer a specific question, you ask the question, but you didn't provide the information. The agent comes back and says, sorry, but I also need this. If you actually want the right answer, I need some more information.
And a bit more.
Right? I need a bit more.
What do you mean? As my teacher used to say, so what do you mean?
Yeah. So that's where the sort of the chat type style automation comes from.
You mentioned an interesting thing that's come up a lot during the series when we talk about artificial intelligence, automation. The issue of upskilling is a big one, especially in South Africa's context where we still need to keep as many people as employed as possible. How do you advise businesses to go about that, especially as a company that then is brought in to assist in a transition to automation?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, the answer is actually more general than very specific. I think these things has a lot to do with incentives, right? So are you bringing a new system or a new way of working to an employee and telling them to do it, right? Or are you taking them with you and then, there must be sort of incentives in place. So like, why would they learn that, right? Or why would they do what they want to do? If you want them to do their best work, then you have to give the opportunities of upskilling, but there needs to be an incentive linked to that. Otherwise, it's just something else, another system.
Just another thing to battle with.
Yeah. And I mean, generally, depending on the work-life balance of a specific department or people, that's obviously a very big incentive. So if you have that's quite the easy one. The other one is, when you talk about efficiencies and those sorts of things, incentives, I think, is key. Yeah.
And in terms of incentives, how high up is the bottom line, money, in what people are often looking for?
I think it depends on the generation, right? So I think there's always a balance, right? Maybe the more older generations are more money driven. I think the younger generations, in my company, I'm the oldest, so I get.
So it's a very young company.
Yeah. So I get a lot of slack for that. But when you look at the younger generation, yes, work-life balance, those sorts of things. It's more of a mix, more of a balanced sort of an
job satisfaction is higher up for people now. How do I do my tasks? How do I complete them faster?
Exactly. And an employee experience as well, right? People don't want to, because, before you get into the workforce, everything works, right? All your apps work perfectly. Then you walk into a company, now you have to use maybe an old type of system, sort of a culture shock.
You're like, what are they doing here?
So why is this not more intuitive? So those are some of the challenges, but I think definitely employee experience and those sorts of things, that counts a lot, especially for the younger generation.
And what APA then programs are available, and how do they each perhaps speak to those very questions that people now want stepping into a workplace, want answered rather?
So the litmus test that I always use is I was able to build a RPA bot and it worked, right? It never went into production because the really smart people that work with me, do the things that make it production ready. But I was able to build an AI agent by myself. And the reason for that is that, it's being deployed on platforms, right? So you have the flexibility to use, everyone sort of understands all the players now, Gemini, Google, OpenAI with all their things, Anthropic, etc. So you have the flexibility to switch out the models. But when you're actually telling the bot how it's supposed to perform its job, you basically write words.
Okay.
If you understand what I'm saying? So it's no code. So you in the example of this, the service agents, like if you receive a mail from this person asking this, or you find this keyword, then it's a level 2. You understand? And that is not me or anyone writing code in any coding language. It's basically natural language. We give it rules. So that makes it quite easy for the subject matter experts whose work you're trying to augment to then actually, upskill them and get them to do to build these agents.
And that's interesting because when those of us who aren't in the industry think about what's happening on the back end. We also think that he must be sitting there writing in code. It's this big, complicated. It's this big, complicated process. But you're saying, in terms of what you do, it's not quite that.
No, so again, I think where RPA is very low code, no code, right? But there is a lot of technical knowledge that you need, especially in terms of the integration and those sorts of things. Where the AI agents is much more going to leverage off of the company's internal people than it will leverage off of an external partner or solution provider that's coming to assist with these sorts of things. Because I can't walk into a company and pretend I can do the job better than the subject matter expert that's sitting there doing that. They need to actually help us to, train this agent to do,
to feed it basically, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And is that one of the, would you say, deployment considerations? What would those be? And how much do they change, I wonder, from one case to the next?
Yeah. Look, I think obviously planning is key, right? If you want to do anything properly, you have to plan it properly. So if you are going to disrupt the subject matter experts who are performing certain roles, you need to find a way to get them, loose from some day-to-day activity so that they can focus on this. Because at the end of the day, I don't think this is going to be, it won't be well run if those people aren't available. And then obviously, I'm pretty sure a lot of the other guests mentioned it, but the data is so important. So you are going to need the internal IT resources.
So quality data is quite central.
100%, yeah.
And when you are called on then by the various companies who want to work with you, what are the common questions that they have in trying to move to whatever system they're on to the introduction of APA?
Yeah. So look, generally we don't replace really systems, right? It's more augmenting the people as well as the smoothing or making current business processes better. In a few cases, we're like, we have nothing that does this. Can you build us something? Right? That's not. That sort of happens very, very infrequently. But in most cases, I think a lot of them are scared about some of the ethics considerations, what actually happens to their data, and mostly how it's gonna impact the people. So those are some of the common questions.
How do you answer the question of ethics, right? Because especially in terms of data storage and security thereof, how safely it's kept, how do you get around that when you consider that the sort of systems being used in some industries are evolving so rapidly?
Yeah, I don't. I just light the fires and then I run away.
You're like, it's your problem. I'm done.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, any platform that's worth its salt has got all the cybersecurity certifications and those sorts of things, which is good for the industry. That there's a lot of standards that we can rely upon and trust and those sorts of things. And with all these APA platforms, is that the data that you use to train the agents that never leaves your organization, right? So that's very important. They're not using the training that you are doing to go, oh, by the way, we saw this company did it, so you guys can have it for free. It's completely segregated and kept within the company.
And is it cheaper to do this sort of work now than it was, let's say, at the beginning, right at the introduction of the systems?
Look, I think until now, probably when the APA platforms became available, I think that the cost of entry is a lot more achievable for the average corporate, right? Previously, most companies that spend a lot of money on AI were the banks, the insurance companies, and those sorts of things where, they were crunching.
The large corporations,
exactly,
yes.
Very, very large. They were doing significant investments. But now with the APA platform, I mean, like I said, it's actually quite simple to use, deploy, and those sorts of things. So costs come down quite significantly. And I mean, we sort of sat on our hands for a few years since AI sort of really started taking off.
As a country?
No, as a company. Waiting for something that we can see that we can actually take to the market that makes sense to you.
And do you then, in looking at the market, is your market just what's happening in the country? How far are you casting your net, if you will, in terms of what to sort of pull in so that you're able to be competitive?
Look, I mean, so we're talking about net. We caught a few fish in Europe, so
it's international clients, so the money's good.
So we have expanded there. So again, if you look at the cost of resources over there, it's way higher. So use cases are easier to justify over there. Where, as in the local market, you need to find good use cases. There's a lot of use cases that comes, small ones, but don't really move the needle. So you need to guide the customer to say, well, look, have you thought about this? Is this going to move the needle enough for you to invest? And then you can do all the other, sort of gritty stuff.
And is there a difference in your approach, for example, in dealing with your fish here at home and the fish you've now been able to net in Europe? Are the needs different?
Not really. There's a slight difference in culture in terms of the way things are done. I think there's a lot more preparation in Europe, which is probably something that we can also learn from here.
We're not good planners.
We like this. Let's go.
What about a good time? We're spontaneous, right?
Which is no good. Yeah, exactly. And I think also we're in this market more willing to take risks, right? Which is a great thing. So I think there's a lot more time gets spent on. Oh no, we have to fix this before we can do X, Y, Z. Whereas in South Africa,
so that's perhaps
a good idea. We jump in and we do it and we make it work. Yeah.
I want to flip that question and say, what can the South African market learn from, say, Europe, and vice versa?
Sure, that's a tricky one. Like I said, you can't change the Europe, the culture in Europe, right? Everything needs to be, it must be prepared a lot more until people are comfortable, and then they sort of pull the trigger. The one thing that they do very much focus on, which I think we can learn from, is the impact on the time of their people who have to help or assist with this. With any sort of implementation, normally it's a third. It's the technology, 1/3 responsibility, 1/3 the partner, 1/3 the customer. So I think they take more time to understand the impact that it will have on the workload of the employees than we sometimes do.
And where is the industry going next?
I'm just got used to this the agent thing. What happens next? I mean, I think it just becomes more and more prevalent. Normally, what you have is you have a few big wins within the market, and it gets widely publicized or whatever the case might be, and then sort of everyone comes along with it. So I guess that's probably just around the corner. So I just think AI is just going to be more and more prevalent. What's happening after this? I don't know, maybe robots, actual ones,
Actual, the ones that are going to take our jobs and fight us.
Like my kids watch the YouTube Kids, and then there's a guy who's cooking against a robot chef. I mean, that's great.
Do you think we'll get there, though, for South Africa specifically? And how long might it take us to get to a point where we're playing with robots?
I hope we don't.
You and I both. That makes two of us. Lastly, Rudolph, we're asking this question all season.
Yes.
What does AI mean to you?
Well, to me personally, I mean, we're very passionate about solving our customers' problems, and this just helps me and my company to solve more problems, right? So it enables a lot of things, and I mean, there's a lot of satisfaction from watching a customer thrive because of a problem that you solved for them. So I guess that's what it means to me.
Good to talk to you, Rudolph. Thank you so much for being on AI Impact Talk. Rudolph Janse van Rensburg speaking to us on AI Impact Talk. We'll be back with another edition of the show for you very soon. Take care. This episode was brought to you by the Afrocentric Group, Southern Africa's most diversified healthcare group, building a winning health offering.